Welcome to Sound the Horn Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guest on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com. Welcome to the Sound the Horn Sports Show. I'm so glad to have a good friend of mine here by the name of Jasher Cox. Jasher is the Director of Athletics at Allen University. How you doing today, Jasher?
Hey, I'm doing fine, Derek. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. As we talked about earlier today, you got the memo, so we dressed it like so.
I've been holding on to your coattail for a while, and this is proof. So, I don't know what else to say. This is the glaring sign right here. Well, for the longest, I've been holding on to your coattail. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Great minds think alike, right? What was the other phrase you said earlier?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think, too, just in this business of athletics, there are so many different relationships you build, and you and I built a closer relationship when you were working at the Swac office. We've known each other, but even since then, we've been good colleagues and great friends, and I appreciate your friendship. And again, I appreciate you for accepting my invitation to be on the show.
Well, I feel the exact same way, and more importantly, when this is a small community of being in intercollegiate athletics, and you've got to find those that you can trust. And the one thing I can always say about you is you always picked up the phone. And trust me, when I dialed you, I really needed you. And I felt like you knew that. So, no, I'm grateful for our relationship. So, absolutely, when you call and asked about this opportunity, without a shadow of a doubt, I knew I wanted to do it.
Yeah, well, the way we have it set up in 4 quarters. In the first quarter, what we usually try and do is just kind of get to know our guests and let our guests share some insight to our viewers. So if you would, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, what high school you went to, and maybe whatever activities you participated in high school.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in rural East Alabama called Notasoga, Alabama. It literally sits between Tuskegee and Auburn. A good portion of my time was spent in Tuskegee. My mother served over 40 years as a registered nurse at a Veteran Affairs hospital right there on the campus of Tuskegee. So a lot of time spent there on that campus. But I went the opposite way up Highway 14 in East Alabama, and I attended Auburn University. I went to my very first football game when I was 9. That was 1989, and you'll appreciate this, being right there in Mississippi. It was against Mississippi State. My oldest brother took me, and my middle brother, and I knew immediately that's exactly where I wanted to go to school. So when it was time to start searching for institutions, there was only one school on my list. I knew I was going to Auburn.
Yeah, in high school, did you participate in any athletics or any other kind of extracurricular activities?
I did. I played high school basketball for a gentleman by the name of Obadiah Threadgill. He is in the Alabama State Athletic Association Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, a couple of months ago, he passed away, but he left along an unbelievable legacy. He's one of the few, or I think he's probably the only coach within that state that actually coached boys high school basketball and girls high school basketball, and won multiple state championships with both. So he's really rare. And I'm thrilled to have had some time up under and Tutelage up under his belt. Amazing coach. And again, like I said earlier, left behind an unbelievable legacy.
Yeah, you mentioned going to Auburn and being in the shadows of both Tuskegee and Auburn. But what were some of the deciding factors after you gotten older? Because when we go through high school, we kind of figure out what we want to do. And then that kind of leads us to where we want to go to college. So kind of what was those deciding factors in you going to Auburn?
First of all, I followed the pattern behind my brother. My brother attended Auburn, and he was a music education major, and I tried to follow behind those footsteps. Now, the biggest mistake I made, I initially went there as a music ed major because he made it look easy, and I in fact found out it was not. So I had to find my own path, and I went through the communication realm eventually. But yeah, just a pesky young brother trying to follow the footsteps of his older brother.
Yeah. And I think those things are the unique experiences that we have. I grew up in South Georgia near Valdosta. My sister
Yeah,
went to Valdosta State. And, that gave me an inkling of what college athletics was like. And when I got to, when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. But what
yeah,
I did remember growing up was my favorite basketball player on Valdosta State's team was a business major. So that's how I chose going into business. And
yeah,
sometimes I say I wish I didn't more because those business courses were rough. but it made a big
yeah.
difference because we looked at people we aspired to be, we admired, and we made those decisions. And as leaders, that's what we have to realize all the time. Somebody's watching us and watching decisions that we make, and good, bad, or indifferent. We have to put ourselves in the best position to make a decision that's going to be beneficial not only for you but those people that are in your circle.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. I always tell people when you're picking a major, try to follow your passion, and but that's half of it. So I followed my passion, but you also got to make sure you have a good skill set too. So I got halfway through the curriculum, and I started asking myself, man, what am I going to do with this? I don't have the desire to be a high school band director, so why am I being a music education major? So I had to figure it out. Again, like I said, my brother made it look easy, and he's actively still in that career right now. A very decorated band director. He's worked at Purdue. He arranges music for Ohio State. People still purchase his music that he arranges. So again, it was easy for him. It was not for me. So I had to find my niche. But eventually I did, and I'm grateful for my time there at Auburn.
So when you were at Auburn, did you switch into journalism, or what did you move from, and how was that transition for you as a student?
Yeah, so no, I appreciate that question. One of the more influential individuals in my life right now is, and was at the time, over 20 years ago. God, I can't believe I'm saying that. Yeah, over 20 years ago. He's actually the voice of Auburn University athletics, Andy Burcham,
Mm-hmm.
play-by-play for Auburn football, men's basketball, and baseball. But at the time, he was working for a local radio station right there in Auburn, and I kind of just walked in one day and I said, "Hey, I'm willing to sweep a lobby, answer some phones, but I got to get into this field of radio." And he was like, "Yeah, wait a minute. You're not coming in here to sweep a lobby if you're actively pursuing a degree. We'll find something for you to do, but I need you to have a little more ambition than that." And so, he was tough on me early on, and to this day, he will still call and check to see how I'm doing and offer feedback. But a very, very good friend for me now, but was also a mentor during those days in the name of Andy Burcham. So, he gave me an opportunity to co-host a sports talk show that aired from 4 until 6, Monday through Friday. So I was an undergraduate, literally co-hosting a show with two really experienced adults in the athletic field, and they were extremely knowledgeable. So I learned a ton of those things, and you got to imagine talking anything sports wise in Auburn, Alabama, in an SEC town during football season. You got to be prepared for some phone calls now because it was a talk show as well. So I really cut my teeth early on about how to approach things, what to say, what may be offensive, and if you're going to stand on this certain mountain alone, be prepared to defend it. So, but those were fun times back in the day, working with Tiger Communications and Sports Call at the time. It was an Auburn network, an Auburn University affiliate station.
Who were some of the marquee athletes at Auburn when you were there as a student?
Oh, I mean, I will say this. I am jealous after my post-graduation career, about a decade later, a guy by the name of Cam Newton came along. I was not a student during those times. But yeah, I was in school, undergraduate days. Marquise Daniels was a decorated men's basketball player, ended up playing for the Dallas Mavericks, Indiana Pacers, Boston Celtics. Football, I was enrolled with guys by the name of Carnell Cadillac Williams, who played running back. Ronnie Brown, Jason Campbell was the quarterback at the time. So that I was in school during that Tommy Tuberville era, if you will, and in football and men's basketball during the Cliff Ellis days, who was also still coaching, believe it or not, at Coastal Carolina.
It's amazing. Cliff Ellis recruited me when he was at South
Oh,
Alabama back in 1981, 82.
easy
So
there. I
that
was
shows
about
you
to
how
say, I
long he's
feel like
been
you're about to
coaching.
give your age now.
I'm not, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about that. I'm 21.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
No,
I had
but
no
but
idea. So that's
yeah,
great.
but Cliff Ellis, and then you and I have a mutual person that we know. Eugene Harris coached against me in high school. He was a high
Yes.
school
How about
coach
that?
after he left Tallahassee to coach at Pelham High in Pelham, Georgia. And
That's
then,
another individual still influential in my life today. We'll exchange phone calls. I haven't talked to him in a while. He is aware that I'm here at Allen University, but
mhm,
that was another guy that was always down my throat while a student at Auburn. And hey, young brother, you don't need to do it this way. You need to do it that way. Always gave advice. But yeah, you're right. There's a mutual friend in Eugene Harris, a good old Florida State Seminole too, by the
yeah,
way.
oh yeah, yeah. When you take a look at when you worked as a student, because you've had some opportunity to interview people as a professional,
Yeah.
what were some of your most memorable moments as a student working with that network and people that you had a chance to interact with?
Well, a couple of things. In order for a local radio station to have an affiliation with a university, there has to be some quality return on investment. There has to be an ROI. And the way this particular station showed that they could provide a return on investment, they were willing to broadcast several sports beside football and men's and women's basketball and baseball. So what came along with that, they wanted to be the first. Look, we're going to do live volleyball on radio. We're going to do live softball and soccer on radio. And Andy Burcham was somewhat the guinea pig of that, and he said, "You know what? You're going to do it." So I knew nothing about women's volleyball at all, and said, "You're going to do play-by-play for women's volleyball." So I went to the head coach, her name was Laura Farina at the time, and I said, "I'm going to be your new play-by-play person." And she was like, "Great. I guess we'll put that on radio. That's fine." I said, "I don't know anything about volleyball." So she handed me an old VHS tape and she said, "Watch this." Back during the days when I was at Long Beach State, we were a really good nationally known volleyball program. I think you'll learn some of the terminology here. And I did just that, and I did the best I could. But that's one of the biggest things. He just threw me into the fire and said, "Figure it out." And sometimes that's what you need. And it's obviously been advantageous for me fast forwarding to today. You're never 100% ready for your next gig. Sometimes you just got to figure it out and educate yourself. So that's one thing that stands out. The other thing, by far, and this is probably at the top of the list, is the year of 2000. I got sent to Hoover, Alabama, to cover SEC football media days.
Mhm.
And so, and I won't hold you here with this one too long, but just to give you some of the names back then coaching in the league, you're talking about Spurrier, you're talking about Nick Saban, you're talking about Philip Fulmer during that day, you're talking about Mark Richt. And again, even now, coaches are still decorated and well known in this league, but there were some heavy hitters. And me walking up at 20 years old, sticking the microphone up to a guy's mouth that holds a status like that was a really big deal for me.
Well, that opportunity is giving you a chance to serve and work with a number of different bowl games and conferences,
Yeah,
and I think it's something that is we all need to understand. Sometimes stepping out of our comfort zone isn't a bad thing, and,
yeah.
and, and you'll be surprised on some of the experiences that come to you. So we got about a minute and a half left in this first quarter. If you would, Jasher, tell me what you would tell your 18-year-old self if you had a chance to go back and talk to him.
I probably would say be even more involved. Now, I was involved in the curriculum in the field that I was studying, but just like you mentioned earlier, feel free to step outside of that box and do more things. If I had a chance to repeat, I would have been a little bit more active with the Student Government Association, the Black Student Government Association. I would have been more involved in a variety of areas on campus, not just on campus, but within the city, attending, you know, local city town hall meetings, just knowing about the environment, where you're going to be for the next 4 to 5 years, educate yourself and just try to meet as many people as you possibly can. Sometimes I don't feel like I always did that.
Well, I think those things are key. I was a little different in high school. I was student body president, and I did, so I can understand what you're saying because when you're more informed and you're more engaged, then your voice carries a lot more because you're not just, you're not just spouting a saying. You're coming in with some substance and you're giving individuals an opportunity. And that's why I encourage all young people to get involved with leadership roles and take those on because if you're not in the room, you're going to be left out. And
No
it's so
question.
important. It's so important to keep that in mind. So as we get ready to go ahead and finish out this first quarter, we're going to put a pin in Auburn. We're going to touch on Auburn a little bit, then we're going to jump into a few other roles that you've had and going to keep the momentum going. So at this time, we're going to give our sponsors an opportunity to share some important information with our viewers.
Are you tired of living check to check and looking for residual income? We have just the opportunity for you. Join us on Saturday, the 25th of June in Jackson, Mississippi, as we discuss the sexiest industry in the world, travel. Let's turn your passion into profits, whether it's on a full-time or part-time basis. Please RSVP or text to 404-915-8626. We look forward to connecting and taking flight. See you soon.
Welcome back to the second quarter of the Sound the Horne Sports Show, and I'm on the show. We have Mr. Jasher Cox, Director of Athletics at Allen University, and we were talking a little bit about his time at Auburn University. And before we leave there, is there any other things that kind of went on? Because I think when you were there, and it's amazing how athletics works. My career starting in athletics was Tommy Tuberville's first head football job. So it's amazing how, I know Cliff Ellis because he recruited me. I know Eugene Harris because I played against his teams, worked with Tommy Tuberville. It's amazing how this athletic realm works. But if you could, just some other maybe memorable times of your time at Auburn as a student.
I mean, there were several, and I had so many people that were influential that motivated me during that time. My last year at Auburn was actually a year that men's basketball went to the Sweet 16, and you look at that bracket during the time and the teams they had to navigate through in order just to get to that level. And this goes to show you how successful some of these guys were back then, because some of them are still playing. The men's team drew a first round game against St. Joseph, who had a Delonte West, who was a really good player, Jameer Nelson during that time, and then you wipe your forehead because you got clear of that one, and then you drew the Wake Forest team that had Chris Paul and Josh Howard, and so you're able to get through that, and then eventually you run into the daunting task of the eventual national champion that year in Syracuse, who had a guy by the name of Carmelo Anthony. And that's where it ended. But a great season to say the least. My very first year, I don't know if you guys remember the name Chris Porter.
Oh, yeah,
men's basketball, number one ranked team in the country during that time, just really turned basketball and turned Auburn into quite the frenzy during that time. A very, very good basketball team under that Cliff Ellis era.
Yeah, just growing up in that part of the country and then having an understanding when I came out, a name that you might remember, Tavesta Anderson. I don't know if you remember Coach Anderson, but he was a recruiter at that time because he worked at Auburn with Sonny Smith.
That's correct. Yeah, that's right.
Auburn was a place that I had my eye on, and I really wanted to stay in an area that was close to home. But I've always been fond of Auburn, particularly as an athlete going there to play, just the community and things like that. So I'm pretty sure the time that you spent there was well worth it, and you truly enjoyed that.
Yeah, one other point I want to mention this too. Softball. I was one of the first. I actually was the first to do play-by-play for um, Auburn University softball. And I go back to during that time in the facility. You had your grandstand, your typical
Hmm.
grandstand, but the press box was a utility shed, right? No AC, no air. We're talking the year 2000, and you fast forward now, is one of the best looking facilities in the country. And since that time, they've had bids. They've earned bids to the College World Series. So they've played and competed for a national championship out there. But it's just come a very long way, and it's just a constant reminder, especially for where I'm working right now in HBCU. Sometimes your facilities aren't necessarily where you want them to be, but it's not the end of the world. And I just always tell people, when institutional resources allow, you'll see a change in areas, and it's no different from campus to campus, right?
Well, you brought up a great point. I started working in the SEC in 1995. So
Yeah.
that's when a lot of people were bringing on soccer, softball. Volleyball was already established. And at Ole Miss, I think they might have jumped out along with Florida early because they built a nice facility for the softball program. Uh,
Correct.
but if you take a look now, uh, look at Oklahoma, look at all those teams that played in the women's World Series.
Right.
It used to be UCLA, Long Beach, those teams out there. Now,
Right.
just because of an investment, these teams in this part of the country have gotten better.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We went out to the West Coast the last year I was working with softball. We drew a Stanford regional out in Palo Alto, California, just right outside San Francisco in the Bay Area. And we were two and done. We took that long trip out to the West Coast, and we got shipped back home pretty quick. But it was a really good sign and indicator. Hey, here's where you need to be. This is where you are. But yeah, we got back home pretty quick, and the NCAA made sure we returned pretty quick. No extra nights
Hey,
on that hotel.
hey, hey! I understand that when it's time. Hey, like that comedian you say, gotta go, gotta go. When it's time to go, you gotta go.
That's right. That's right. Fun times
you
though.
you left Auburn and got into working as a photojournalist. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. I had a handful of months left before I was set to graduate at Auburn, and I made the 40-mile drive to Montgomery, Alabama. And again, sort of a walk-in situation. I saw, this is back when they would advertise jobs on the actual news broadcast. So during the 6 o'clock report, around the 20-minute mark, they would show you all the job vacancies. And I said, yeah, photojournalist. I think I can do that. So I took my resume to Montgomery, and the guy basically offered me a job on the spot. I always share this story with people, especially the ones that want instant gratification. Sometimes you got to work for it. Humbling experience. Sat in the guy's office, and he leans back in his chair and he says, in the most southern accent you can think of, he says, I'm going to start you off with 18.9. With overtime, you might make 20. And with no hesitation, Derek, I said, I'll take it because I didn't have a job. So, but again, you live and you learn, you grow. I'm not afraid to share this with people. I got my first check, and it was less than my monthly rent. And I knew that wasn't good math, but I had to try to grind it out and figure it out. So
Mhm.
good life lessons. Forever grateful for that opportunity at CBS 8, WAKA in Montgomery. That was my first real gig full time after college.
You know, two of your opportunities, and with our viewers, I want to make sure that resonated. Two opportunities, you stepped out your comfort zone and you presented yourself to individuals, and you were not afraid to take on that task. And I think that speaks volumes for who you are. I know who you are, but I think that just sharing that with our viewers is something good, because I think so many times people think things are given to us, and
Yep.
it doesn't happen that way.
It does not. Again, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity because I didn't have employment, but there are a lot of people that wouldn't take that salary right out of the gate. But I was willing to do it, and they gave me an opportunity, knowing that they were hiring a guy at the time. The overwhelming majority of my experience had been in radio, and they were hiring a guy that had never really cut on a camera before, right? And so that was a risk for them too. So again, they took a chance on me, and yeah, I took advantage of it, and it led to other avenues, just to say the least. So again, extremely grateful for my time out there in Montgomery. It was fun.
So did you go into sports or was it just all news?
It was all news at the time, and yeah, in the heart of downtown Montgomery and the state's capital, you get real news in that area. So I learned a lot. Frequent news too, 24-hour news. And with, I don't know if they still do this, but if you were a photojournalist on certain weekends, they sent you home with the camera and you were on call. So if you heard something to come over the intercom that it may be a live police chase, you got to try to figure that out and hope you can get to the end of it. So an interesting gig to say the least, but it was fun.
Well, you left there and then you transitioned into working at Alabama State. How was that transition going from working at Auburn TV station and then going back into collegiate athletics?
Yeah. And so even when working in radio as an undergraduate at Auburn, I knew at some point I wanted to work within an athletics department. I kind of finagled my way in the news side, which eventually led to me going to the sports department. So kind of staying there, so they would send me on the weekends to go get VO and footage and post-game interviews for maybe an Auburn game or a game at Troy or Alabama State, anything within a localized approach. But I was able to use that platform, and it gave me an opportunity to work in sports information at Alabama State University. And so during that time, I kind of that was my thrilling moment. For me, I finally arrived, not from a career-ending standpoint, but I finally arrived in the element that I truly wanted to be in. And so working with sports information and being in charge of disseminating information to fans and the general public and doing those things and running game day operations was a big deal. And that, Alabama State is where I really started to truly cut my teeth within the intercollegiate athletic realm.
So many people hear about the Magic City Classic and they enjoy watching it, but not a lot of people know what goes into putting it on.
Yeah.
As you've done that, kind of share maybe some of the behind the scene things, because I think that would interest some individuals as it relates to just what it takes to put an event like that on.
Yeah, I always tell people, if you plan to go and this event is in October, it is June now. If you haven't booked your hotel now, you're probably in trouble. So start by learning that. It is a very big deal, and massive attendance inside and out. You could probably say there are about the same amount of people inside that will tailgate for that event. It's a Saturday game, and people slowly start getting there on Wednesday. You see the RVs all over the place, and alongside the Bayou Classic that everybody knows about, it's right up there with it. Arguably one of the most important and popular HBCU classics in the country. But a lot goes into the planning, and you have to let people know early on that you don't have any tickets. If you say the words, "Let me see" or "Let me check," they interpret that as yes, he has them. So you got to tell people either no emphatically, or you just got to say yeah, and you come through with it and you give them to them if you actually have them at your disposal. But that's the main thing. Don't give any maybes with tickets.
Well, I'll tell you, I have an opportunity to be involved with the Florida Classic and also just some of the other things when you've worked in the MEAC and also the Swac, playing in the Celebration Bowl, MEAC Swac Challenge. The reason I say that is because people just think the team shows up, they play, and then they go home. Well, you got logistics with the band, you're coordinating interviews, you're coordinating TV, tickets, you're coordinating the sidelines and all those things. And if you can maybe share, when you were working with Alabama State, what was your key role when it came to working with that classic?
Yeah, so the key role was basically making sure I was a solid liaison between coaches, players, and media. You get a ton of requests in terms of interviews in the weeks ahead to the classic, and I always want to make sure you give everybody a chance to fulfill that opportunity. If they request, let's try to meet it. Not everybody is legitimate, so you got to have good discernment and try to figure out who's what. But protecting those players is another avenue. While you want to give them all the requests, you want to make sure they know exactly who they're talking to and making sure they know how to respond to questions and making sure you've got a humble approach because there is an opponent that you will have to see on Saturday. So let's not over talk. Just answer the questions and move forward. And if you have doubts about it, feel free to skip it and go to the next one. You have that right. So educating them was fun. And I mean, as you know, Derek, when you come in, when they walk in the door as 18-year-old freshmen, they come in as young boys and young girls, and it's a fulfilling process once you start to see them grow toward the tail end of that junior year into the senior year, and you're starting to see a young man and a young woman.
Well, you brought up a great point. Why athletics means a lot to me. In fact, I grew up in it, through it, and seen the benefits of it. But I've been working in athletics a little longer than you, and it's so surreal to see the people that you mentored that took your advice, go graduate, get married, have children. But then the thing that lets you know you're getting older is when those children are finishing college. Their children are finishing college. But it's something that I've enjoyed over the years, and I went to work in the private sector for about 8 years, and something similar to you. Just felt that it was something that I wanted to do, and I made a transition into athletics, and 26, 27 years later, I don't have any any challenges with it, because as we get ready to go to break, I'm gonna share this quote. Somebody said, if you make your vocation your vacation, you never work a day of your life. And that's what I did. And I know that's what you did. And at this time, we're going to give our sponsors an opportunity to share some information with you, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Q Talicia Garrett. I am here to introduce our New South Development and Training Outreach Hour every Tuesday at 2 p.m., giving you information on how to become a part of the programs through USDA and Farm Service Agency. We can be reached at 678-779-9468. We can also be found online at newsouthoutreach.com.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
Welcome back to the third quarter of the Sound the Horn Sports Show, and we have as our special guest Mr. Jasher Cox, Director of Athletics at Allen University in Columbia, South Kakalaki.
That's right. That's what they call it. Absolutely.
That's
thrilled to be
what's
here.
His name, the comedian, that's his hometown, J. Anthony Brown.
I didn't know J. Anthony Brown was from
J.
Columbia.
Anthony Brown,
Okay.
he's from Columbia, and he's proud of it, too.
He is. That's great. Okay. I didn't know that. You just educated me on something. That's good to know. I'm learning there are a lot of people from this area, man, that, that's got ties to Columbia, Ray Allen, Jermaine O'Neal, Peter Boulware. A ton of people had successful high school careers in some of these local high schools in the area.
And Columbia is located where, on major thoroughfares where there's just a lot of activity, I was over there a couple of years ago. And working, you never get a chance to see some of the community, but stayed downtown, had a chance to eat at some of the restaurants, and it's a very nice community. But it's just like you say, though, you can tell it's a capital city by how it's structured and a great. I've always enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, likewise. I'm having fun out here, but you're right. It's close in proximity to Atlanta. You can get to the beaches, Myrtle Beach, Charleston. Quickly, bordering states, Tennessee. So you're not far from the mountains as well if you want to change in scenery. So no, this is an ideal place to move. And, the real estate will also indicate that as well once you start looking.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, he is a general practitioner there.
Okay.
Dr. Jones, he's been there for over almost 20 years. He loves it. But what we're going to do, we're going to ease on from Alabama State, and we're going to talk about your time at working at the Swac office. And how did you gravitate to get there in that role?
Yeah, I was looking for something different. I felt like somewhat had reached my ceiling there at Alabama State after having um, a handful of roles within the athletic department. I wanted to see what else was out there. Um, and the Southwestern Athletic Conference was gracious enough to extend me a job opportunity, and so I worked there from 2012 to 2016, also within the same area, PR, media relations. Um, but I'm grateful for that opportunity to work with a guy like Doris Sharp. A lot of people call him Suge Knight. He was you definitely sat up in your chair when he walked into a room. But in my opinion, he took the league from one level to another and gave it a boost in the arm in terms of visibility. Moving championships to some popular areas, as to the state of Houston, Texas, with men's and women's basketball. Also had some places where he moved baseball to an attractive city like New Orleans. So he made quite a few changes there with the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And as you know now, Charles McClellan is there now, and he's continued to elevate it. So I'm happy to see what that league is doing right now.
I think that's when you and I started. We worked closely together. I was working at Auburn at that time, and you were there at the office, and you were always you're always professional, very engaging, and that's some of the things that I think and I know that has been a benefit for you in what you're doing in the roles that you've had. And one thing I'd like to ask you is, while you were at the Swac, you were there a number of years. What were some of your most memorable moments while you worked there?
Oh, I think it's by far probably some of the championship opportunities. A lot of people forget, what you do at one school, now you get to a league office, you're doing the exact same thing for 10 or 12 or however many in that league. So with that comes along the opportunity, as you mentioned, to meet those that are in institutional leadership and meet those from various athletics departments. Like you said, that was my opportunity to meet people like you that didn't say, hey, get away, little pest, trying to figure out how to become an athletic director like yourself. You gave me that opportunity, gave us feedback. So yeah, that's what I remember the most, those infamous winter and spring meetings. Those were opportunities that I took advantage of. I wanted to make sure I met as many people that I could in those leadership roles from each of those member institutions.
At the time that you were there, and I think that's when ESPN and a number were going to digital and doing a lot of the streaming. In that time, during your time there, what did you see was an improvement in how HBCU sports might have been getting a larger platform?
Yeah, you're right. So this was right around the time where you were having exploratory opportunities with ESPN, and during that era, the Swac would be featured on ESPNU on a Thursday night weekly game during certain parts of the season, and I'm sure you can recall. It seemed like every single one of those games featured were excellent football games and entertaining football games. So being front and center during that time, having center stage was a big deal for that league. Excuse me. And as you know, it eventually turned into quality telecast with the football championship, quality telecast, even being extending to the ESPN3 platform, the ESPN Plus platform. So you could tell it's continued to grow since that time. And yeah, the Swac has gotten on stage there with the worldwide leader in sports, and it is not going anywhere. It's looking even better each year. At least that's what it seems like from afar now.
Well, I had a chance to see what the relationships with ESPN was going to look like on my time while I was there at Alcorn, but just to kind of go back and visualize what you were talking about and what a lot of people didn't realize, and even serving as an athletics director at a FCS, you would go to the conventions and they would want to know, well, how do you get on Thursday night, or why are you getting so much exposure? And it was key for us because it gave not only the great thing about it And I think that's why the Power Fives are keep growing. It's a collective message that goes out. So when you say it might be two SWAC schools playing, but then you're still elevating and promoting the SWAC as a whole. And it makes a big difference when those names are out there. And my last guest that I talked with, we were, and I might want to connect you with him. His name is Errol Reese. He does a talk show out of the Durham area. And we were just kind of talking about the Deion Sanders effect, but not really just his effect, but more of attention that comes to HBCU sports. And it goes back to what you just said. A lot of it is the cutting edge that was going on in the MEAC and the SWAC with those games that were happening, because we would take those games where some other conferences wouldn't, and we would leverage them. And you were a big part of that. And if you can maybe just kind of share how, you feel those things were implemented and the successes that we're having now.
Yeah. So first thing I learned is to make sure you check with the athletic director first before you start assigning games, because that may be a game that you may end up selecting a game that you're expecting to have on a Saturday that can draw an enormous amount of revenue. So let's not take the Alcorn State Grambling game when both teams may be undefeated by the time they see each other and place it on a Thursday. Let's not do that. That could go incredibly wrong. So that's the first thing.
You sound like you had some experience with that.
Maybe so. Yeah. So no, the first thing I learned is to make sure you're in constant contact with the university and ask, how do you feel about this one? And the majority of the times, athletic directors, because they wanted a good presentation to be out there too. So it's not like you gave us pennies and peanuts. You guys always gave us a quality football game to use as a telecast. So that's one of the first things I remember standing about that, just, trying to pick everybody's brain to see what was good. It also reminds me of an opportunity, that, we ended up growing our own digital platform internally with the SWAC digital network. And we were really lucky that you guys gave us an opportunity to do a Grambling State, Alcorn State game. I want to say it was around the 2015, 2016 season, but it was one of those time frames where both teams were really, really good in football. And we got an opportunity to use that game. And it was so many people there from both fan bases there in Lauren, Mississippi at Alcorn. And glad I got there early enough. I can say that. But it was just it just seemed to be in the air that evening, and at any given moment, you just felt like you were going to see a Steve Air McNair or a Doug Williams was going to walk onto that field at some moment. But I mean, just an incredible atmosphere, and I think that's some of the things, unfortunately, people that don't know about Black college football, particularly in the SWAC, you're missing out when you haven't been able to witness an environment like that.
Well, the thing that I can, and you and I shared this earlier, and I don't know if you knew it or not, but both of my parents went to HBCU, and I can remember from the earliest recollection until I went to college, I was on Auburn State's campus for homecoming every year at the parade, and I think it's something that, you can go to some of the larger institutions, and they have their tailgates, but it's like a family reunion when you go to some of these when you go to HB, because it's like that. And I think those are the experiences that more schools are tapping into. Deion got his prize recruit because he brought him over here for homecoming. And he saw 50,000 people in the stands and he saw the electricity. But it's just not one day for those institutions. That's almost every weekend. So we have to learn how to leverage those opportunities and be able to project them. And I think that's what you're seeing now, particularly with the leadership that I know that with Dr. McClellan. We had him on a couple of weeks ago, and he has an awesome vision for the SWAC. And if it comes to fruition, it's going to be a game changer, because it's going to put the SWAC in the realms of some of the other conferences, like with North Dakota State and some of the others, where you can have not only one group competitive, you can have a full body of work where everybody's competitive.
There's no question. And again, I'm like you. I'm excited to see what he's got in store for the league. I know it's going to higher horizons, and they continue to do things in the right way. And that's exactly what you want to see. Both the SWAC and MEAC, as as you well know, is with Dennis Thomas and his window slowly coming to a close there at the MEAC. Just two phenomenal leagues, and you just always want to see them do well. And ESPN has helped both leagues do that. And another guy that just does not get enough credit, as you know, John Grant, you know, the executive director of the Celebration Bowl and assisting with ESPN events. So between the MEAC Swac Challenge and the Celebration Bowl, it starts and then it ends with John Grant and his initiatives there with ESPN. He has been a big voice and a fighter for Black colleges, particularly in those two leagues.
Well, what we'll do before we get ready to head out of this quarter, we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the Celebration Bowl and then also the MEAC Swac Challenge. And then when we come back from break, we'll hop into your time at the Horizon League. But just within this minute, maybe share what you think the impact is as it relates to what John, and I do agree what John Grant has done with the MEAC Swac Challenge and the Celebration Bowl. Yeah.
You know, when the first time I had the opportunity to sit down with him, I wasn't sure if I saw his vision, admittedly. And I, you know, we're talking about two Division I leagues, and the mind where I came out of, the mindset is if you're not winning the FCS national champion, then you're not a champion. And then, you know, I listened to him talk, and he talked about the disparities and the disadvantages with Black colleges and HBCUs that do participate in the FCS playoffs. And, you know, they could have these magnificent seasons, and the seedings in the postseason won't indicate such. So, you know, you end up getting paired with a team that you probably should not. And before you know it, the handful of Black colleges that are participating in the FCS playoffs, they're home relatively fast. And so I said all that to say this: if they're not going to treat us equally and do it the right way, screw it, and let's do it our way. Let's crown our own Black college national champion. And man, it's really worked. You know, you talk about some of the first matchups you've ever seen in Black colleges going back to the late 1800s, and how Black colleges continue to migrate and see success. He was right. He was spot on. So I'm glad to still be a part of it. I still help in certain capacities with MEAC Swac Challenge and the Celebration Bowl from afar, and it's all because of my relationship with John Grant.
Well, thanks so much for closing out that third quarter. We're going to go ahead and take a break and let our sponsors share some quality information, and then we're going to try and finish strong with Jasher Cox when the HorneS Sports Show. We'll be back in just a second.
Advertise on WeBelieve.Global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.Global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.
COVIDsolutions.com is paving the way forward for a safer city government, delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at sgecovidsolutions.com. Let sgecovidsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at sgecovidsolutions.com.
Welcome back to the final quarter of the Sound the Horne Sports Show, and we have my good friend Jasher Cox on, and it's been a strong first three quarters. Now I'm gonna see if you can bring it home.
Well, you know, I always tell people, you know, I don't start a lot of stuff, but I'm a great finisher.
Well, you know, one thing that I thought about, and we're going to jump to the Horizon League, but you made me think about a conversation I had with Dennis Thomas. When I was over in the MEAC and I was at Florida A&M, I was one of those that was not a proponent of the Celebration Bowl. You know, and at that time we were successful, had some pretty competitive teams, so you're looking at trying to get into the playoffs. So when I left the MEAC and came over to the Swac and just really started looking at the numbers, what a lot of people don't realize how much of a financial impact you take in that first and second round before you maybe even actualize any money. Uh, it was a no brainer for me when I made it to the SWAC to say, okay, let's go ahead and embrace this. And during my tenure at Alcorn, we had an opportunity to participate in it 3 times, and the impact is what a lot of people don't realize. It's one of the highest payouts for bowl games. Some of those payouts were a little higher than some of the lower FBS schools. There's just a number of opportunities that are there that you have to take a look at it sometimes in dollars and cents and not emotion. And I think initially I was looking at it from emotion and not dollars and cents. So if you will maybe just kind of chime in on that.
Yeah, sorry not to cut you off. You're absolutely right. And I think that also is a testament to show you what kind of leadership we've got with the league's council of presidents and chancellors in both leagues. I think they recognize the value in the game because of the guarantee and the payoff. We often use the phrase, what are we doing for the student athlete experience? Mm-hmm. And that is the best example. The MEAC SWAC Challenge and the Celebration Bowl, when they put on for those two institutions that are competing, there's no better opportunity to maximize what we talk about when you mention student athlete experience. I mean, it is a real full-fledged bowl game experience. And on top of that, you mentioned the distribution that goes back to the competing institutions. It's one of the better well-attended bowl games in the country, comparatively, especially among the FCS level. You turn on some of these bowl games, man, and I'm not going to call them out, but you turn them on midday, it looks like ants are in the stands. You don't see anybody in attendance. You cannot say that for Atlanta in the Celebration Bowl. And if you think I'm lying, go to the hotels, the host hotels the night before the game and see how many people are around for those events, as you know.
Well, I think what John has done, and you brought up a great point, I think Alcorn might have been maybe the last one, the last MEAC SWAC Challenge I think was played at Southern, because we were playing it in Orlando at the Citrus Bowl, but then moving it to Atlanta was a great fit because it's where you start, it's where you end. Everybody has a large fan base. All schools have large fan bases there, and then it gives you an opportunity to have a neutral site, but then also be able to attract people that are just fans of sports. And I've been involved with bowl games from some of the highest, some of the largest ones to some of the smaller ones. But I tell you, and you hit it right on the head, that bowl experience is in line with a number of the other bowls that go on, and those kids, not only from the game, not only from the apparel that they might get, but getting financial literacy and having an opportunity to do some other things that just shape you, having interaction with the NFL and have them come in and visit with you. It's something that I think is just so powerful, and it gives that, as you say, the student athlete experience that most bowls don't have.
Yeah, and again, it starts with John Grant and his vision, as you mentioned. Beginning with the end in mind, and you start in Atlanta, and it ends in Atlanta. It starts in Atlanta with MEAC SWAC Challenge, ends in Atlanta with the Celebration Bowl. But the other thing is, you would be shocked as to how many kids are coming to the city of Atlanta for the first time. Mm-hmm. And seeing what that city has to offer. Arriving there and coming over that hill off 75, and you see that nice skyline as you're approaching the city. There are some people that have never ever seen that a day in their life, and that's one of those two games is their first experience with such. And so it really is a big deal. And you throw in the ancillary events that ESPN Events puts in place for the student athletes to experience alongside with the game, and I mean it's over the top at that point.
Well, we're gonna migrate you from the SWAC now, moving to the Horizon League, and if you would maybe kind of share what attracted you from moving to the SWAC to the Horizon League.
Yeah, again, similar to Alabama State, I thought I reached a point where wasn't much that I could do for the league, so it was time to go out and experience something else, and different title change, a few more pennies in the wallet now, and so gave me an opportunity to, as you say, migrate to the the Horizon League there in Indianapolis. I checked with my current commissioner at the time, and Dewar Sharp, and we're on the same page. And he said, I think that's a phenomenal league, and if there's mutual interest, you should definitely check it out. And so John LaCrone gave me an opportunity to work there, and I worked with Julie Rolash, who was the deputy commissioner at the time. She's now the commissioner of the Horizon League. And as you know, when you mention the Horizon League, not many schools right out of the gate will know who's in that league. And the way I describe it, I tell them they're the teams that will ruin your bracket in March Madness. So at one point, Valparaiso used to be in that league. Butler used to be in that league. But now, Wisconsin, Green Bay, University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Illinois, Chicago, Wright State, all of those teams will absolutely ruin your bracket if you're not crazy in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So it's a basketball league, and right there in the heart of Indianapolis, Indiana, and they take basketball serious, both men and women.
How was it for you growing up, being around in the South, football every weekend, you're working as a student, football, you're working, and your first job, football, you're working at the conference with the Swac football, and to be in an environment where football was not, I guess you would say, the major sport. How did you adjust to that?
Yeah, it was an adjustment, and I'll admit, I don't think I got it right out of the gate when I first started, but I slowly started to understand that they're promoting men's and women's basketball and its basketball championship tournament year round, because that's where they're placing all of the eggs in its basket. So my first year in the Horizon League, the tournament was played in Detroit. And, a lot of people kind of side-eyed, why are they playing a basketball tournament in Detroit? Well, they played in the old Joe Louis Arena. As a matter of fact, it was one of the last events in the old Joe before they tore it down or stopped playing, which is also where the Detroit Red Wings compete and play their games back then. But now they play in this all-new, beautiful facility in Little Caesars Arena. But again, it was one of those opportunities to just really step outside of your comfort zone, focus in on a league that doesn't necessarily have football as a focal point, but now you get to focus on men's and women's basketball. And look, I put swimming and diving under my belt. It's a big deal, swimming and diving. Didn't know a whole lot about the sport, but before it was over, I did. I knew plenty of it after being in place and having chlorine have you blinking your eyes several times, over a 4-day span. So I learned a lot about it, but it's just a great opportunity to do something that, I'd never done before.
If you're not a fan of basketball, you will know, like you said, with the Horizon League and what they've been able to do. And even to the point where the young man that was at Cleveland State, he did so well, he got the job at the University of Missouri. So not only is it competitive, but other people are looking to see how they're successful. And because I was the general manager of the Celtics, were they in the Horizon League at that time when he was at Butler, or were they in?
Yeah, so what's funny about that, Butler and both Valpo, they had already exited the league by the time I had arrived, but the commissioner was sitting down with me one day and talking about numbers, and it goes, and I know you didn't ask us, but it just goes to show you how if schools focus on basketball, it can be a major revenue generator for you. Yeah. So because you get those units when you advance each round in the tournament. And again, Butler went to the Final Four while they were a part of the Horizon League. But when they went off and went to the bigger league, the other league, maybe it was the Big East at the time after they left the Horizon League, I can't retain.
Yes, I think they're in the Big East now.
Yeah, and so, but you fast forward to 2016, and the Horizon League still had multiple millions in reserves from that one Final Four trip. So they did a lot for that league, Butler University, and as a result, it's been profitable for the conference. But yeah, and that's why the focus is so big. They try to see if they can be more than a one big league. It doesn't always work that way, but they try to force as many teams down your throat to try to advance in that NCAA selection process.
Well, you spent a little time at Lincoln Memorial University.
Yeah.
and had a great run. How was that magical run during COVID?
Yeah, so prior to COVID, so I had 2 years under my belt, 2 really good years under my belt with men's basketball. So the
Mm-hmm.
very first year that I got there was the 2019-2020 season.
Mm-hmm.
They lost their opener in overtime and won 32 straight. So I'm an all new athletic director at this powerful Division II basketball program. I've yet to see the men's basketball team lose. They win the regular season. They win the conference tournament championship. The selection show comes out in March of 2020, and we're the regional for the Southeast thing. I mean, we're East regional host, Southeast regional host for the men's D2. And then all of a sudden, COVID hits, and we were never able to see what was in store ahead. But I feel really confident that team was going to end up winning a national championship. I felt like I had an opportunity to be at a school that was going to win a natty for the first time, and I will never know. But the ensuing year came around, the 2020-2021 season, which is the first year institutions had to operate under, the likes of a global pandemic where everything is different. Trying to tell kids to stay away from these people, stay away from that town, don't leave the campus, stay here. We didn't know what we were telling them, right? We just wanted them to be safe, and so it eventually led to almost everybody at some point testing positive, program going through series of shutdowns, and you finally able to work through it. But again, the team won the regular season and won we didn't participate in the conference tournament because we got shut down right before the conference tournament, and the days of acclimating didn't align, so we couldn't participate in the conference tournament. But we ended up competing in the NCAA regionals, won our regional, ended up going to the Final Four there in Evansville, won our first game. Second game, we're up by 16 points. Eventually, that lead trimmed down to 9. And then after halftime, it was back and forth, end up losing at the buzzer. But again, 2 great teams, back-to-back teams that Josh Schertz was the head coach at the time for Lincoln Memorial, who's now the head coach at Indiana State. And I honestly can't believe that LMU was able to keep him for double-digit years. He was loyal to that program. He built it. And as we speak right now, because of what he's done, it's still a solid program that's been left behind.
Mm-hmm. Now we'll transition on over to Allen University. How's your take me to your first 90 days over at Allen?
Yeah, so I walked in to a university, and I had the opportunity to be paired with one of the well-known presidents among this in this country. Actually, he's been a part of SACs and accreditation processes. So there isn't a school on God's green earth that he does not know. So I'm grateful to be paired with a guy like that is unbelievably sharp, unbelievably smart. And I was told, I was warned by the exiting commissioner now, the SIAC, Greg Moore. I was like, hey, what is it going to be like working for Dr. McNeely? And he gave me the words. He said, well, if you're intelligent, you'll be fine. But if you're not, you'll get exposed pretty fast. And he's right. He was spot on. But his door is always open, Derek. And as you know, that's all you can really ask for as an athletic director. I don't have to worry about getting on his calendar 3 weeks from today. If I have an issue, just pick up the phone, let me know that you're on the way, and let's talk about it. And so I meet with him at least once a week, and also being a part of the president's extended cabinet gives me that voice that I've always wanted to have. And as you know, sometimes your opinion is always welcome, but then there's also some moments where if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. But at the very least, he's going to listen to you. And that's all you really ask for in this role. But he's been phenomenal to work with. And the first several days of being here at Allen University, we've had some challenges like any other institution, especially still operating under the global pandemic. But everything I've tried to launch or put in place, it's always the focal point has always been the student athlete first. Sometimes us adults, we can mess it up, but we always have to, reel it back in. Who is this about? This is about the student athlete. And the other part of that is we're never going to do anything that's going to embarrass the institution. So we try to stay away from PR nightmares and keep things afloat. But so far, so good here at Allen.
Well, I think you hit the key. And if you're in this business and the student athletes aren't your first priority, you'll be exposed real quick, And one thing that I want to do is welcome you to the SIEC because, like I said, I grew up in that. That's my parents, teachers, and a number of people that I know. But one thing I know about you, you have the passion and you have the persistence to make sure that you're going to be successful. And as we get ready to go and close this fourth quarter out, I just want to thank you for being my guest. My phone is always accessible for you anytime you need anything. And if I can help you out at any time in the near future, you don't hesitate to give me a call.
Well, Derek, I feel the exact same way. And of course, I'm going to take advantage of that opportunity to call you if I need you. Always do. But no, thank you. Extremely grateful for the opportunity to be on Sound the Horn. I told you earlier, I love the logo, love the creative aspect behind this thing. I'm a fan of the show and I've seen your past guests, and I just hope things continue to work out for you guys there at the station. I love the show. Great content.
Well, thank you so much. And you have a great day. And to our viewers, everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Derek.
Welcome to Sound the Horn Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guest on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.